Hey guys, it's Courtney Seeley. I'm here to talk to you about the Penn State scandal. I'm sure you've heard of it before. I'd just like to start off and say this case is not about Jerry Sandusky, it's not about Joe Paterno, and it's not about the children affected. It's about the way Penn State handled the issue and how it brought forth standard, ethical, and value questions. And perhaps what will go down as the most infamous sexual case involving a university in the United States, the crimes Jerry Sandusky committed over a decade have left children scarred, families destroyed, people dead, and a football team in shambles. Although the original crimes could not be prevented, had Penn State properly handled the situation with proper communications and public relations, the crimes would have been stopped with the original crimes rather than continue for decades. For the first time in this course, I feel this case brings forth ethical dilemmas one might face as a public relations practitioner. I feel like this case crosses over with our ethics course because it goes along the ideals of Emilio Kant, who is a German philosopher. His philosophy that comes into question in this case is deontology, ethical theory, which most notably is the categorical imperative. What this means, deon means duty in Greek. In other words, it means that we have a duty to act certain ways in accordance with moral laws. It means we have a duty to do the right thing, and that there is only one right answer and it doesn't change with time. This case is a constant question of ethics. As the book says, ethical behavior has been defined as doing the right thing for the right reason, although Kant would argue otherwise. The question in this case is, did PSU do the right thing for the right reason, or did it hide its head in the sand to protect its football program and by extension, the university itself? The Penn State scandal is focused around Jerry Sandusky. Sandusky was a longtime football coach, 3 decades, who was married and had 6 adopted children. One of those children has come forward as a victim, however, Sandusky and his wife Dorothy deny it. Sandusky was considered to be a huge part of the Penn State football team during its national championships in '82 and '86. To properly examine this case, one must look back to not just a year and a half ago when the situation came into the media's eye, but in 1998 when it first began. In 1998, Penn State police and the university were notified of possible misconduct after allegations related to Sandusky, a young boy, in the Penn State football showers. A report was filed, but nothing came of it, and the case was closed at the request of Penn State campus police commander. Although the case was closed, Sandusky admitted to showering with the boy and hugging a victim. The Penn State punishment was that he was told to quit showering with children, and he agreed. There later was an incident that year when Sandusky brought an 11-year-old back home from a workout with wet hair. The mother asked Penn State police to eavesdrop on a conversation she had with Sandusky about the situation, in which he responded, "I was wrong. I wish I were dead." The incident once more went to the district attorney, who decided to drop the case, and the campus police closed the case on the matter. The sick part is that a doctor examined Sandusky and said that he had tendencies of a pedophile. This is the point when ethics first comes into question. It leaves one to think that Penn State was trying to save itself from the public view by not applying deontological ethics to help the children in question. Although hindsight's 50-50, it's hard to believe that Sandusky would have been fired had he not been named the successor to Joe Paterno. Penn State, however, did quietly inform Sandusky that he would not replace Joe Paterno if he ever retired in May of 1999, a year later. At this point, Sandusky quietly retired from coaching and started to devote much of his time to a nonprofit organization he helped establish. Although Sandusky retired, he still had all access to the Penn State facility, including keys. The Second Mile, better known as TSM, was a charity which Sandusky founded in 1977. Its purpose was to reach out to children who needed additional support and who benefited from positive human contact. Although TSM did some good to children through the community, Sandusky used it to have access to hundreds of boys who were vulnerable because of their less than pleasant house life. The Second Mile was a statewide organization. However, that all crumbled after Sandusky resigned in 2010 after child molestation allegations originally came out. As he was the primary fundraiser, and due to the negative publicity, the agency closed in 2012. The second batch of allegations started in 2000 when a janitor walked in on Sandusky giving oral sex to a child. He told his boss and his co-workers, but nothing came of it because he did not want to risk losing his new job. Sandusky was once again caught with the boy in 2002 when a grad assistant walked in on him having intercourse with a preteen in the showers. The assistant fled, and the next day he informed head coach Paterno of what he had seen. Paterno in turn told his supervisor, athletic director Tim Curley. Neither of the two told the police, however. A week later, Curley had the grad assistant tell his story to Gary Schwartz, the PSU vice president, who was also over the campus police. 2 weeks later, almost a month after the incident, Curley informed the grad assistant Sandusky's keys had been taken away and the incident had been reported to the Second Mile. Although Curley told the grad assistant he had confiscated Sandusky's keys, Sandusky was still allowed to have all access to the facilities due to a clause in his contract after his retirement. Curley did, however, tell Sandusky he couldn't bring boys to campus anymore, and that was the end of the discussion. This is the second point in which ethics comes into question. Penn State had evidence and witnesses to show sexual assault, and several employees had heard the story firsthand. However, none of them decided to call the police about the incident. This furthers the thought that Penn State was just trying to save themselves from the public view of the university. There was no question of what had happened in the showers. However, the university did nothing to help the children. There are several questions about this case, which not only bring forth questions about the United States justice system, but the university systems as well. With all the mounting evidence on Sandusky, why was he allowed to remain in society for 3 years while the grand jury completed its investigation? Where is the original district attorney who held the original case in 1998? He disappeared without a trace in 2005. Why did so many people witness this abuse happening, and yet no one went to the police? Perhaps the most concerning question is, did Penn State handle the situation this way because it was the right thing to do, or did they do it to save their own butt? It also asks the question of how efficient a university-ran police department is. People from the lowest profession on campus, the janitor, to the highest profession, the president, knew of the troubling issues at hand. However, Penn State still missed several opportunities to stop Sandusky. In fact, the university ruled that the reaction to complaints of improper sexual behavior was to remain silent to minimize the complaints. It was not until the grand jury indictment that the university took action. When all was said and done, several people had lost their job. The president, the athletic director, and Joe Paterno, who was the head football coach for over 45 years with Penn State. Within months of losing his job, Paterno died of cancer, although some people believe that his body simply shut down from the stress and emotions of the situation and losing his job. Sandusky was sentenced to serve 30 to 60 years in prison, which will be the rest of his life. And on June 22nd of this year, he was found guilty of 45 charges, which included several counts of involuntary sexual intercourse spanning more than a decade. So it's clear that Penn State ignored the allegations and did the opposite of what Camp felt was the humane thing to do, because they were afraid of the repercussions it might have on the university itself. Was it the right thing to do? Did the cover-up work? After the situation happened, Penn State announced that they had hired a communications company to help plan and execute the next steps it would need to take. At the time, they put in $2.5 million for 5 years to focus on the situation, but they had already spent $7.5 million on crisis communications related to the case. When it was all said and done, 26 sexual abuse victims came forward with allegations against the coach, and Penn State decided to settle with all of them for a grand total of $60 million. On top of that, the NCAA sanctions require the university pay out $60 million over 5 years into special endowments created to fund programs that prevent child sexual abuse and to assist victims of child sexual abuse. Not to mention that the university also received a 4-year ban for postseason football games and a 5-year probation, which will cost them several million more dollars, seeing how the university took in $70 million a year from the football program alone. So it's hard to determine the actual amount lost because of this incident. We can see the cover up didn't work. It just cost them money. Was it worth it though? Was the university at least right to try? No. The university, it didn't affect the university publicly really bad because in 2012 it had the best increase in 6 years. It was a 6% increase for their freshman class. And the monetary repercussions would have been much less had they handled it properly in the first place. Had the university followed Kant's deontological ethics and the categorical imperative, the end result would have not only benefited the victims, but the university as well. Sure, they would have had to pay for the original assault, but it would have been a fraction of the amount they had to pay after letting this happen for decades. What did we learn? Well, Kant wins again, that's for sure. And I think it's important to note too that presidents and universities should not be allowed to have complete control over the university police department. Penn State has set an example for all to follow, and it will affect the company outlooks of public relations in the long run. The book says that it's hard to understand what those changes might be, however, due to the case happening only a year ago.